Welcome back to Super Bowl Radio Row coverage here on ESPN Wichita 92.3 FM. Chance Liebau, pleased to be joined now by Jeff Chadiha, finally hopping on in person. Appreciate you for hopping on, Jeff. How'd the flight treat you?
Pretty good, pretty good. I came down on Wednesday this year, so it was a little different. Usually I'm here on Sunday, but I had some business to take care of back home. So it's funny. I think about it. I'm actually refreshed, and my friends here are about ready to cave in. They've been running the street for 3 days straight.
You're bringing in all the positive energy that we need here at the Row, and appreciate you for stopping by, and obviously all season this year. Appreciate you for cutting out some time for us. You know, when you look at this season for the Chiefs, is it one of those years where if they don't get the three-peat that it's a disappointment because they've achieved so much in the regular season, but it feels like a team that enjoys the postseason more than anything?
Yeah, I think every year is probably a disappointment if they don't win a championship. The way they feel about it, there's probably maybe a handful of teams in that boat. So, I think it's been a long time since they haven't won it.
Yeah.
But I'm sure that, they wouldn't look back and say, oh, we were, all these were great one-score wins and we got the one seed. They want to be able to say they were the champions one more time.
And when you look at this matchup with the Eagles, this is one that we saw a couple of years ago, but a lot of different faces. And I was talking earlier, the journey for both teams to get to this place over the last 2 years has been very different. The Eagles had so much go wrong for them last season, but Nick Sirianni has done an excellent job of putting the right pieces in place for them to get back here. What have you seen from the Eagles, and how different are they from this team we saw 2 years ago?
Well, the defense is drastically different because you got probably, 9 new faces, 9 new starters, and you got a new coordinator. So that was, to me, the biggest change they made. People talk about Saquon Barkley. But really getting Vic Fangio, a veteran defensive coordinator, to come in here, and then having some of those young guys they've drafted over the last couple of years to grow up, like Jalen Carter and Jordan Davis and Nolan Smith. And then the draft they had this year where they picked up Quinyon Mitchell and Cooper DeJean, and they brought back C.J. Gardner-Johnson to fortify that secondary. So to me, that's what's different about this team. It's probably a better team that they had last year or 2 years ago, and the experience factor helps, but it's still a huge challenge playing against the Chiefs.
Yeah, and for the Chiefs, what have you seen from them from week one until this Super Bowl? Where do you feel like they have grown the most from this season?
Well, I think the big thing that they've done is they've shown that everybody on the team feels like they got to make a play for this team to win. And, you go back a few years ago, and it probably was more about the stars playing at a star level, and now you've seen various different players step up in different situations. AFC Championship game being a perfect example of that. You got, Juju Smith-Schuster makes some key catches. Justin Watson catches a 2-point conversion. Karlaftis made some plays. Xavier Worthy obviously was the most important receiver on the field for the Chiefs, and so they're relying on a lot of different guys. And that's one thing I've always said about their success is that it's as much as it is about Mahomes and Andy Reid. It's the chemistry, it's the culture, it's everybody on the team trying to make a play to help them win.
And Brett Veach also deserves a lot of credit for building this team, and then obviously, plugging holes. I kind of feel like it's a Major League Baseball team where you get to the trade deadline and you start just plugging these little holes with these little one-year rentals. They've done it all year long with the likes of Kareem Hunt, Juju, DeAndre Hopkins. Heck, even in the secondary, they had a Steven Nelson they brought in but just didn't use him at left tackle. They bring in DJ Humphries. It feels like this is Brent Veach's masterclass this season, just being able, not only in the draft, but also as the season has gone on, adding key players in spots they need. Is this his masterclass, would you say?
I don't know if I go that far because some of those guys haven't obviously done a whole lot. I think it's more so I think it's Andy Reid's masterclass. Because I think that he's had to move the people that they've won because Joe Tooney moving to left tackle. They've run because George Karlaftis has stepped up in key moments when they didn't have a Menahue. They've won because of Mahomes. Kareem Hunt was a big move, but I think Andy, not taking anything away from Brett Veach, by the way. He's done a good job. He's done what he had to do, but I think they've been very aggressive trying to fill holes. Whereas I think Andy Reid's had to go manage these guys and try to find a way to get through a season without some key players being there. And I think that has been – I know he often doesn't get the credit as the coach of the year. He's up for it this year. But, my God, when you're losing Rashee Rice and Hollywood Brown and Jalen Watson and Isaiah Pacheco, all these guys, and you're still finding ways to adapt what you do to fit who's coming in, I think that speaks to his coaching ability. So I think it's more about Andy than Brett.
And you brought up Jalen Watson. It's only been a 2-game sample size since he returned to the lineup, but what have you seen from the defense that's maybe changed a little bit since he's returned?
He hasn't played that much, and so I think what he's done is allowed them to probably feel a little more comfortable about where they're at over there. I'll be curious to see what happens in this game. Guy was lost his camera over there. What happens in this game, how much he plays. But, I mean, I said this about Pacheco when he came back, too. Like, when you're talking about a very explosive position, a dynamic position, with a leg injury like that, like, it's a lot to ask of a player to come in and really make a difference. And you're seeing Pacheco now, what he's become. I think they've played Najee Johnson a lot more than I thought they would play him. And so I think that is probably – I'll be curious to see what they do in this game because they're going to be asking guys to play a lot of man coverage to deal with the run game. And so Jalen Watson, Najee Johnson, whoever is in there, and Spagnuolo's been trying to rotate guys, I think they'll all be a factor in what they do.
And you brought up the running game with Saquon Barkley. How do the Eagles get, creative in how they use Barkley? Because it's not just they're handing the ball off to him on every single play. They do a lot of different creative things, especially up front, because they have a really good offensive line. How do you see them getting creative and getting the best player the ball in his hands?
Well, I think what helps them out a lot is Jalen Hurts.
Yeah.
To be honest with you, when you got a guy back there who can run the football as well, it creates a big problem for the team, for any defense, because you got to deal with Saquon's explosiveness, and he can run through the tackles, he can run outside, and then you got Hurts who can pull it and run himself. Like, that's a big – your defenders have to be very disciplined in what they do. And I tell people all the time, like, Derrick Henry's a great running back, and again, not to minimize him, but tackling him is about courage. Like, you got to want to get in front of that bus, right?
Yeah.
Like, the bus is coming, do you want to get in front of it or not?
Yeah.
Like, Saquon is like trying to catch a cat.
Yeah.
You got to, like, really be able to be where you're supposed to be and have guys rally the football. And so he creates a different dynamic. And so, I think that is, to me, it's the number one thing the Chiefs got to worry about in this game. Like, how are you going to stop that running game?
And then out wide, the Eagles have so much talent at receiver. Devontae Smith and A.J. Brown, which one of those two guys do you see as being the one guy that they have to shut down or, being more important than the other?
Yeah, well, A.J.'s the guy you got to stop because he's the more physical, the more dynamic player.
And he's also kind of a player where if the first quarter goes by and he doesn't see the ball, he's going to get frustrated and might quit, know?
Yeah, and so I think coming into this game, we had this conversation on my podcast, and I feel like Devontae Smith is going to be an X factor in this game for that reason. I think Spagnuolo on passing downs, they'll try to take him away. They'll probably, roll coverage in his direction, maybe double him at times. But certainly Devontae, I think back to that first Houston game when Tank Dell had a big game, and they're very similar styles of receiver. I think that's the thing. Like, how are you going to, again, manage him? And look, Philadelphia's going to be creative too, right? They're not just going to throw on passing downs or run on running downs. They're going to try to mix it up. And so, Devontae's going to have a lot of one-on-one matchups probably in this game, and he's going to have to win if they want to have a chance to win.
Yeah, and for the Chiefs, the matchup on the offensive line, the one that I think that everybody's really looking forward to watching is, of course, Mike Caliendo sliding into guard and Jalen Carter. I mean, it seems like every single game that the Eagles have played in, Tom Brady's showing a replay. Look at Jalen Carter on this play. Holy cow. Yeah. He smoked his player. Now you imagine that Jalen Carter is going to line up against Caliendo most of the time. How do you feel like the Chiefs' offensive line, which has been stellar all season long, how do you feel like they try and neutralize that?
Well, you have to double team him. You're going to have to know where he's at all times. Yeah. He's usually lining up on the left side, but, I imagine they're going to try to get him on Caliendo a lot in this game and have Jordan Davis move over and deal with Trey Smith. But really the more intriguing part of that is not just how do you stop Jalen Carter, but are they going to take Nolan Smith, who is a really, really fast, quick twitch edge rusher, and put him over Joe Tooney now? Because now you're creating some one-on-one matches for that guy. Yeah. And Tooney, as good as he's been, and I think he's been probably the three biggest reason this team is here right now, he's still a guard having to play in space. Yeah. And so you're talking about, that's an interesting matchup to watch, but we've known what the Chiefs' offensive line has been all year. It hadn't been phenomenal, but in this game, it's going to be a huge focal point.
On the Eagles side, Nick Sirianni's gotten a lot of flack over the last couple of years, as has Jalen Hurts. How do you see those two, after this Super Bowl, win or lose? How do you see those two and that marriage those two seem to have together? How do you see that progressing and continuing to evolve?
Well, it's interesting. Like, they remind me a lot. I mean, you're probably too young to remember this, like Chicago Bears when Mike Ditka was the coach.
I am a little young to remember that.
And who was the quarterback? The guy for number 9, Jim McMahon was the quarterback. Okay. And he wasn't obviously as – Jalen Hurts was not as crazy as McMahon was, but there was always some creative tension going on there. They are – look, I think that they're probably not as at each other's throats as people may make it out to be. and they may be good for each other in a lot of ways because they're very different personalities. Sirianni's so emotional and over the top, and Jalen's so reserved, almost like a preacher.
Yeah.
The way he talks. But yeah, if they win this game, it will be huge for them. If they lose and they start falling into that category, like a Sean McDermott, Josh Allen, John Harbaugh, Lamar Jackson, what's it going to take to get over the top type thing. But it's either way, it's going to be interesting for them.
You bring up Sean McDermott. Does it feel like there's any team in the AFC that is going to be able to knock off the Chiefs, or at least, I mean, the Bills have climbed the mountain, they just can't reach the peak. It feels like, Spags has Lamar's number. The Bengals don't take September seriously enough to reach January. Is there any kind of team in the AFC that has a chance?
Oh, I think they all have a chance. They all have a chance, and I think over time that will bear out. I mean, again, I've covered the league for like 3 decades, and so even as the best teams, the Patriots being the top of the mountain, they have points when Peyton Manning steps up, when Roethlisberger steps up, Eli Manning steps up. Like, unfortunately, you can't keep your whole team together for 15 years and have it be great.
Yeah.
I think when we start seeing Travis Kelce leave and Chris Jones leave, that's the big challenge for the Chiefs. Can they keep bringing in not just good players, but generational players?
Yeah.
And they're going to lose some more guys off this team. Nick Bolton's probably not going to be back. Trey Smith's probably not going to be back. And you keep replacing those guys like. You mentioned Veach did a great job a couple years ago in the draft.
Yeah.
Every guy they drafted in that 2022 draft has been in this game, won a championship.
And we at the station are big Moneyball fans. That felt like the Moneyball year where you give up a guy like Tyreek Hill and you replace him with a bunch of guys that have Tyreek Hill-like skills. Or not really like that, but also players in the defensive side. But in this game, I mean, do you have a side here with the Chiefs and the Eagles? Who do you think wins this game?
Well, I've been saying my head says the Eagles just because – they're the more talented team. I mean, they're more talented at every spot except for quarterback.
Yeah.
But my heart says the Chiefs because you've seen them do it, right? I mean, you can't. If this game was played in a vacuum, we took it to Mars and Mercury and asked people up there, aliens, who's going to win. Look at both teams. They'd probably pick the Eagles going away. But we know what the Chiefs can do, and we expect them to do it because that's how good they've been. So I'll stick with that. I think that. I think it's going to be a lower scoring game than people think. It won't be like it was last time. So I'll go Chiefs 24-23.
Jeff, appreciate your time and appreciate all the time you've given us this season, and enjoy your time here in the Super Bowl.
Yeah, thank you, man.